There's a lot of opportunity still. Believe in yourself. There's heaps of opportunities. I have a lot of other ideas. I'm not gonna act on any of them, but I think if you live in Australia, we live in a great country. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of opportunity in the tech space. I think where we're moving is like a very much a digital age. Like we already are in that, but and some people like to call it the Aquarian age, right? Where we merge with tech. I think the future's tech. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of products missing still that I see. Like there's gaps. So like really, if you want to go on the journey, you've just got to have so much belief and really back yourself. But also, be intuitive, be smart. Don't assume what people need. Like really find out. Like build slowly. Like keep on, like step by step. Go on what people need. Don't be in your ego and make assumptions about things. Like keep progressing off need.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Push Podcast. This is the podcast where we explore the real stories behind what makes entrepreneurs and business owners the successes they are today. I am Jack Ferguson, a small business growth strategist, and I will be your host. I believe the best way to learn and be inspired is to listen to the experiences and stories of those you respect. Their real experiences, their real story, warts and all. Honest storytelling is what this is all about. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast, and don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you are listening to this. Hello and welcome to episode 2, season 2 of the Push Podcast. Today's guest is Sarina Eggers, Director of Business Kitz and Lux Whitsundays, and partner at Legal Kitz. In this episode, we cover how Sarina went about building multiple companies and what factors positioned her to be able to do so. A non-typical childhood and upbringing, this episode involved deeply exploring Sarina's background to help understand how she's become the person she is today. With a unique approach, it was interesting to get a feel for how Sarina has grown businesses without ego. She's happy for others to take the credit, the limelight, and makes employees feel deeply involved in the journey as her companies scale. A refreshing perspective. I have a lot of respect for Sarina. She's a very knowledgeable and insightful person with some incredible achievements. It was a privilege to have her on the podcast. Let's get started. Okay, so today we're here with Sarina Eggers. Sarina, how are you doing?
Well, thanks, Jack. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So, the Director of Business Kitz, partner at Legal Kitz, so that's Kitz with a Z, Lux Whitsundays Director, Advisory Board Member of FlexiFlow, finalist for the Young Entrepreneur Awards for Business Australia. There's a lot going on.
There certainly is. Yes. Look, I like to keep myself busy.
Cool. So why don't we start off? We'll just maybe the elevator pitch for the businesses that you're running at the moment.
Okay, let's do it. So Business Kitz was founded in 2016 and delivers, I guess, packages of documents and business resources for Australian businesses. And they're all been specifically designed for Australian businesses. So, for example, if we're going to set up a hair salon in Australia, we provide every document to set that business up. Legal Kitz is a full-service corporate and commercial law firm, and Legal Kitz was founded in 2019 and now has another managing partner, not myself. So Legal Kitz is based in Eagle Street, and our team have migrated over there, and the team's growing very rapidly. So yeah, it's very exciting. Business Kitz is currently being transformed into a software. So we already have had a lot of success in terms of the delivery of the services and products from Business Kitz. But next year we are rolling out our software. So it's going to be a massive year for us. And it's going to be a full suite business software with templates, ASIC integration, insurance, banking, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's definitely taking a whole new life of its own.
Awesome. And Lux Whitsundays?
So Lux Whitsundays, that's a luxury sailing business based in the Whitsundays in North Queensland. So Lux Whitsundays specialises in high-end charters. So the boat has like a deep history. My family have been involved, in sailing for most of my life. So there's a story to all of that. But basically, it's an ex-treasure hunting boat that now does luxury sailing tours. So it's very beautiful, very exciting, but also a lot of work.
Yeah, right. Well, it does, like I listen to all this and that's the one thing that comes to mind is this does sound like a lot of work. Managing your time, how difficult's that?
I'd have to say one of the cornerstones to anything that I've achieved has been discipline.
Yeah.
I am extraordinarily disciplined in many ways, but then I guess when it comes to my personal life, I really do let go and relax because I definitely need to balance it all out. Time management. I get up very early in the morning, so I'm an early riser. My favorite time to get up is 4:15.
Wow.
So I like to start my day early. A lot of planning ahead. I also have an amazing team around me, so it's not all achieved on my own. I don't think we ever achieve anything on our own. It's a lot of work. There have been times the last few years where I haven't had a great balance, but I've certainly been moving towards that more.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well done. You're doing what a lot of people can't. But as part of this podcast, it's always we explore how you got to the position you're in, how it all came about. So let's start off with where you grew up.
All right, let's do it. So I grew up in an island off Auckland New Zealand called Waiheke Island. It was an interesting place. It was kind of one of those places that was that attracted really different eccentric type of people, I guess. So there was kind of like Hawaii, Byron Bay, and then Waiheke Island. A lot of people back in the day used to live off the grid on Waiheke Island. So it's about like 25 minutes on a ferry from the city. So it was a mix. It was actually full of like wealthy entrepreneurs and then also people that were like artists, poets, potters. So it was a really colourful place. It was really extraordinary to live there. My family, we owned a number of businesses on the island and so it was amazing. So
what businesses did your family own?
So when they travelled to New Zealand, none of my family have ever lived in New Zealand before. So they were basically looking to buy a yacht because New Zealanders are great yacht makers. So they were there looking for the right yacht, and they visited Waiheke Island just after my parents were married, and my mum realised that she was pregnant with me, and they thought that would be a great place to live. So they set up a lodge. So we owned a lodge growing up, and then later my dad started an eco sailing business in New Zealand, and that was like quite unique for the time. Being eco-friendly and all that kind of thing wasn't as cool as it is now. So my dad was very much like I guess like ahead of his times and quite a visionary in terms of how we should live. So it was definitely a unique upbringing.
Right. Okay. And did that instill the entrepreneurial DNA, do you think, young? Like, do you look back at that and, what do you think that had on you? What impact do you think that had on you?
Yes. When I look at my family, I don't really think I had much chance of following the status quo.
Yeah.
There was a deep influence of independence and freedom. So, so my family very much believed in kind of, backing yourself and freeing yourself, and working for yourself was a family value. Actually, on both sides of my family, so my mum's side and my father's side and my grandparents, there's entrepreneurship on both sides. If you like, I can tell you a bit of a story about my grandmother on the other side, because she was a real old school entrepreneur, and that was quite rare for her time. So I think that influence really did influence me.
Yeah, cool. All right. So you were in New Zealand until...
So I was in New Zealand until I was about 8 years old. And then we moved to Sydney. So my grandparents in Sydney were commercial flower growers and farmers. So they had a variety of shops as well, but they also my grandma ran a large like flower market in the Sydney markets. Have you ever seen the show Sydney Markets?
I don't think I have. No.
It's a real good one.
Okay.
It shows you like the real Australian true blue, like Aussie characters. And that's my mum's side of the family, you know what I mean? So, so kind of meat pie eating sort of,
right.
you know, three veg roast sort of people.
Gotcha.
So they were farmers, and my grandma was, she was amazing. She was full of life. You'd see her at the market sporting like an apron, and jewels from all over the world, because she loved helping people. So she had a lot of migrant fans that she'd helped. So she's very generous. So when people were going through a hard time, she would really like help them out. So all the other fellow like business owners and the marketeers in the area used to really love her. So she'd sort of be wearing all these colourful jewels, and you'd be like, well, where are they all from? And some from Vietnam or China and that kind of thing. So even in her house, she had like a lot of gifts. So it was really beautiful. She was a really like colourful character, and you know, they were real hustlers in the markets. My mum grew up working in the markets too.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And were you happy about moving at that age? I mean, that's quite the move for an 8-year-old.
Yeah. My parents, they didn't ever really advise me of what was going on. It's just like the next minute I was, you know, somewhere else multiple times.
Sure.
Yeah. So, my dad suffered from malaria. He grew up in Papua New Guinea, and obviously, you know, then later on, actually, he was sailing there and was bitten by a mosquito, and you know, the cold was really tough, so we kind of had to make that move. So going to school in Sydney was totally different to the island lifestyle. In Waiheke Island, it's an upmarket place now, but like there was a no shoe policy like at school.
Okay.
No one had to wear shoes. So to go from that to like a small private Sydney school was definitely a bit of a shock. It was a shock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember, I can see here in my notes that you talk about culture shock. Is that when this first happened for you?
Not the extreme culture shock that I've experienced. So one of my brothers lived in Dubai for 8 years, and that was when I was younger. So I have a few older brothers, and I remember like my Christmases were spent, you know, like sometimes we were in Europe with my dad's family, and my other brother he went back to Amsterdam. So sometimes we were sort of like in Amsterdam, and then other times we were in New Zealand, and then we're in Dubai. I remember like, you know, we would just be in Dubai, and I remember it was Ramadan, and then also after that was Christmas time. And, I remember like, well, you know, during Ramadan, which obviously we would definitely want to respect the culture, we couldn't eat and that kind of thing. So like I would be eating, Middle Eastern food, like on the floor of the car. And then I would be waiting for like, you know, where's the Christmas roast? But we really couldn't access any of that. So, you know, Dubai's changed a lot in recent years, but so we'd be eating kind of like the traditional Middle Eastern food. And I remember feeling like very like unwell and overwhelmed. And like going on desert safaris, and then being in like markets, and like going to the souk and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it was definitely like a real mixed bag. It was either that or like, you know, at times my family sailing 100 k's off the coast and going to remote islands. So my parents didn't really shelter me with anything. I was exposed to a lot, and they just took me along for the ride. Right.
Okay. And when you look back on that, what do you think that instilled in you?
I would say that it instilled a lot of resilience, the ability to connect with a very large variety of people from different like social and economic backgrounds, the ability to see maybe the beauty in all people and all cultures, and have like a deep appreciation for different cultures. So I often find myself quite mesmerized by different people in different cultures and the way that they live their lives. And really love so many aspects of different cultures. I think what was difficult for me was then it was hard to reconcile all that in my 20s and really understand, you know, where I did fit in the world and who I was, because I had so many influences and so many different types of people around me that it was hard to take all those pieces and then put it together and really fit that into one person.
Right. Yeah. No, very interesting. So, I mean, I remember when I moved school, like, I mean, you're moving around and I'm presuming you're moving schools as well. And I can remember I did it once. Like, I mean, obviously I went from primary school to secondary school, and then I went to a second secondary school, and everyone's got their groups already at that age, you know. It might not have been so hard for you. It was really, really difficult for me. But what was that like as well, to not be only moving countries, cultures, but, you know, schools is the big one that comes to me when I think about what you had to keep moving to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look, I think that there's a lot to be said for those that grow up in the same community and they go to the same school and they know the same people. Like, there's a real groundedness in that. And I certainly have felt a part of me wasn't fulfilled in that way, but I guess I have a deep appreciation for what that has now given me. But yeah, certainly moving school was tough. I mean, especially the different areas that we lived, on Waiheke Island and that kind of thing, you're still around quite international people. We had a lot of exposure to Auckland City, so it was very much it was like a kind of like a city sort of place that, it was off the grid, but then there was a huge city influence. And then Sydney obviously is still close to the city, but then, there was like farmers and all sorts around where they lived. And then we also lived for some time. My dad had a business in the Sunshine Coast, so we lived there, and then in the Whitsundays as well. I think the most difficult place for me probably was North Queensland in the Whitsundays. The people there are amazing and beautiful people, but so far away from what I was used to. My Dutch family, are originally from Amsterdam City, so we're quite open-minded and we're quite adventurous, and there's a real sort of beautiful like groundedness about the people in North Queensland, but that was definitely very foreign to me, and it was a lot to understand. And the Australian culture also was a lot to unpack. The humour, I guess the sarcasm, and it was a lot to understand. But my family have a lot of my family have quite a deep sense of humour, so like I could get that, but I certainly had to adapt a lot and learn a lot. Like, I remember like the different schools and different areas I went to, I was always in like a state of a shock because I was finding it hard to understand like what was happening and why people were acting the way they were acting, and it always took me a little while to figure it out.
I think that's completely understandable. Yeah. So you talked about fitting in as well before, and that when you got older, it was a bit hard to I suppose get an idea of your own identity with what it sounds like. Correct me if I'm not getting that right. But when you did move around when you were younger, did you try and fit in, or did you try and this is me, get used to it?
No, to be honest, I think I certainly had to adapt myself to it all. I remember being in high school, and a lot of people in North Queensland, they had never left the area. So, but also it's such a vast area. It's transient in a way, but then they've got the country people that live on farms, and then there were the people that lived in the Whitsundays. And so some of my friends are flying helicopters on the weekend, and we're very international and from Melbourne and Sydney. And then some of my friends were they'd never traveled anywhere, but they were absolutely beautiful people. So I remember, I think there I felt the need to hide a bit of myself. On the holidays, I was telling my friend actually on the weekend, on the holidays, I would be in Dubai or Amsterdam. So I would be flying around, or because that's where my family lived. We lived all around the world. So, I would come back. I remember when I was 16, I would just have these experiences, and I would come back to school, and I just wouldn't not tell anyone about it because I didn't want to not fit in. I didn't want to not relate. I didn't ever talk about ever at school that my dad had this eco-friendly business or anything like that, because it was just so different, and people up there didn't really they weren't into that kind of thing. So I think I kept a lot of myself hidden. And I think the people that grew up with me are probably quite surprised at who I actually really am, because I didn't really reveal much of myself for so long.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I suppose I'm add in the age as well. And, that's, kids aren't necessarily, teenagers aren't necessarily the most welcoming demographic of people at the best of times. So I suppose that may have had a factor as well. But yeah, it's really interesting to hear this. So what did it do for your sense of, I suppose, boundaries or limits? Because, you know, not many people would probably grow up with this movement and this, you can just go here, you can just go there, you can just start a business here. Do you look back on that and think that's set a foundation for what you've been able to do now?
Definitely. I don't think that. I think what it did instill in me was a sense of belief and a sense of starting again and renewing yourself and being able to just pick up something and make it work. I think I saw my parents many times like go to a new place and just like have so much belief that it was all just going to work out. So I think I have like an unusual amount of confidence. But I also do understand like the value of hard work to get there. But I certainly I don't shy away from challenges a lot, and I do notice that a lot of people that I am friends with, especially like in Brisbane, they're a lot more conservative in what they'll actually try and achieve. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, you're amazing! Like you could achieve so much. And I see so much talent all the time, but I feel like they're a little more nervous because they've been like conditioned or taught that perhaps like following the path is, you know what I mean? Like that's the safer way, but I don't play it so safe.
Yeah. Oh, that's admirable. What were you like in school as far as like marks and that type of thing goes?
Yeah. So, well, weirdly, I missed 2 years of primary school. Okay, yeah. Skipped that. So I never went to year 2. I went to part of year 1. Sort of. But I was very, and it's a little bit embarrassing. Like I don't necessarily value people that are super headstrong, but I was very determined. So when we moved from New Zealand to Australia, with the way they have like the school system and the different months that people start in, I was meant to be, I'd only just started year 1, but I was like the age of a year 3 student. And I remember they put me in like the younger class. Like the school was like, well, she's got to go in the younger class. You know, she's not done school. She's basically not been to school. And I think they put me in with the year 1s, and I just like kicked and screamed. And I was just like, no, like I want to be with like the year 3 students. And I put up a real fight. Like I actually really got assertive with it and wouldn't stop. And then so they agreed to do a trial. I still remember it. They're like, we'll give her like 1 or 2 months to see if she can catch up. And I think like being the underdog and not being where everyone else was at made me like work super hard to catch up. So I really studied hard. And maybe that instilled like the hard work ethic for me, to study hard because I had to catch up. My dad read to me every night till I was about like 9 or 10, which is beautiful. He believed in like, education and like reading. So it's not like I was like super behind, but I hadn't learned some of the things other kids had learned. So I had to start from the bottom. So my grades were always pretty good. I was certainly always above average. Perhaps, I don't know, I just was. I definitely, like in moving school sometimes, it was like it took me a little time to catch up. I went through stages. I went through stages of being like a top student to like relaxing a little bit. But then I really pulled myself together in high school when it really counted. So I think like I relaxed a little bit in year 8 or 9 because like it was, a new high school and all that kind of thing. I was a bit of a cool kid. And then I was like, hang on a sec, I really want to get somewhere in life. I'm going to study. I have the ability to do this. So I really like put my head down and I studied super hard. From year 10 onwards, and that all like paid off. So yeah, I got really good grades through that process.
Cool.
Yeah.
And did you enjoy academia in school?
Yeah. I loved I absolutely loved it in a lot of ways. I wasn't one of those things where people say they had like a bad school experience. I really liked it. I think I struggled to deeply fit in or deeply connect, but on the outside that's not something anyone would have ever known, like I was student council president, I was sports captain, I was like a leader. Right. I was a leader in my own right, I guess, and I loved being like a leader, and I loved speaking, and I loved connecting with people. So it was good. I think I craved, and it's a hard thing for me. Like I craved the like international connections. Like I used to think at school, like, what is everyone else in the world doing my age? Like, what are they up to? Like I was very curious, and I felt like wow, like I traveled, but, you know, I just felt like, wow, like I don't know, like I didn't feel as if I'd found my people, or like, yeah, I was sort of like deeply creative as well. And I would read, like when I was 15, I was reading like psychology books and Buddhism books. And I was like reading a lot of like really intense kind of books, like Zukhav, what's his name? Yeah, Seat of the Soul and that kind of thing. Like I was reading like deep spirituality books and all sorts of things. So it was hard to find people that were like on the same page, but I definitely did have a few friends that were.
Yeah, cool. I mean, the reason I ask is just simply because entrepreneurs sometimes go one of the two ways, where they, you know, despise formal education, hated school, didn't like it, didn't want to be there, or sometimes that, you know, the hard work and achieving was what carried through, you know, into their business afterwards. So
the rebel comes out later.
For sure. So when was it on your radar that you're like, I want to think about a career? Like when did you start to go, what do I want to do with my career?
Well, I think truly, if you look back, the first time I was making money when I was 8 years old, and I was I said to my mum's friend, who was kind of like an auntie, I said to her, like, can I sell, if I buy like these soaps and like bits and pieces, can I sell them in your shop? So I was like making a profit, you know, pocketing some money, young.
Good stuff.
So like I did that for a couple of years, and I think like by the time I was 8, I like saved up like $1,000. Like I was a big saver. I was really like dedicated on goals. So that was my first pursuit. And then I went, I was 13. I think I was like slightly underage. Anyway, what are they going to do about it? And I was working in my mom's clothes shop. And so that was my first job. And during that time, my dad would like, he grew up in a family that put a lot of pressure. Like, you know, there's a strong class society in Holland. My dad grew up with a lot of pressure to become a lawyer or a doctor, or, you know, follow a path. And he was a complete rebel. He completely like rebelled against all of it and went and became an entrepreneur, sailed the world. So I think he didn't want to put that same kind of pressure on me. So he said to me, like, you know, do what you want. Like, he believed in educating me, but he didn't force me down any particular path. He would say to me, if you want to keep working in the clothes shop, like that's what you'll do after school. And this will be like your life. And then you'll like, you know, you'll get married and you'll have children and you might stay in this town. And he just like would more like provoke me like that. And it actually like, you know, is probably a bit of reverse psychology, but it really worked. Like he had the hands off kind of approach. He's like, it's up to you. But he's like, I'm not going to, he's like, I don't believe in like, you know, totally like funding you or anything like that. Like you're going to go your own way. So this will be your wage and this will be your life. And so you need to make your own choice. So I didn't really like feel like I had a safety blanket. Like I felt like I was out on my own and I had to make a decision. And so then I really focused.
Cool.
Yeah. So
what did happen after school with, where did you go? University?
Yeah. So, I applied for a scholarship at Bond. I was weighing up universities in Brisbane or Bond, and I heard about this. Well, the school told me about this scholarship, and I thought, oh well, that sounds like pretty good. But I wanted to be an arts director and a screenplay writer.
Nice.
That's what I really wanted to do, and I was totally like focused on that. I was like, oh, do what you love, you know. Very first world, new age girl. Like
you're very perceptive for a teenager.
yeah. I was like, do what you love. So I wanted to, really wanted to do that. But it was actually my maths teacher who said, well, your grades are so good. I think you should, you know, study law. I was like, wow, okay. That's not something I really considered to start like studying. But he's like, because I thought I also might like to be a journalist. Like I love stories and I love people. I loved arts and drama and plays and things. So I was like, oh, that's my path. But he was like, you're very intelligent. Like I really think you should study law and you can do those things later. You can do everything later, like just study law. And I was like, I just in that moment, I just accepted what he said and was like, okay, well, I'll do that then. Yeah. So I studied law and international relations and I won the scholarship. So when I was in year 12, I already knew that I was like accepted. And I was never going to like, I mean, with the family I grew up in, following the conventional path wasn't really something that was encouraged. So I wanted to like work in the UN or do something like that. Like I wanted to help. I wanted to have a purpose really. So it wasn't like I went to Bonn to become a lawyer. That was never my intention.
Right, but you're doing law, but you're going to go somewhere else with it.
That's right.
Okay, cool. And so you go to uni. What's that like?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if many people know where Bonn University is or what it's like there, but no, it's a great place. It was amazing. There's people from all over the world. It was totally international. It was probably like perfect for me in a lot of ways. It's like private schools on steroids. Let's be real. But you know, like I also I had some of that background, but I was kind of like at that point, kind of like a kid from the country. So there's kind of like the scholarship students that were quite like smart, and then there was like, you know, there was a mix, and it was great. Yeah, absolutely loved it. I think you know, I didn't understand. Like while I'd traveled and stuff, there were certain things that was still like I had to learn and unpack. Yeah, but a lot of amazing people, and there were a lot of people there that really did think outside the box as well. So I was really like thinking, I wasn't like stuck on a conventional path, and I don't think Bonn really like fosters that either. So I was thinking outside the box even there. Yeah, I mean, look, later on I did end up practicing law, but during that time I worked at different places. I ended up working for like an entrepreneur that worked in the professional development space and the human resources kind of space. And like, that's like underpinned a lot of what I've done, you know? So like, I was like still dabbling in a lot of things while I was at university.
Yeah, cool. And again, just referring to my notes here, but you did think about what it would be like to work in a standard law firm at uni when you were there. What did you think of that?
I just thought that was this pretty crazy idea. I just thought, why would you do it? To all those people that work for Legal Kitz that are listening to this, or like going to apply for a job, like, you know, it can put you on a good path. But look, I'll be real. I didn't see that as like an intelligent life path. I didn't see the value in it. I didn't see the value in working in a high-rise building, billing hours. I just thought, wow, there must be better ways to like use your time, help the world, or make money, to be honest. So I wasn't like dead set on that at all. And so I was always looking like left and right, not straight. I didn't think that was what I wanted to do at all.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, what were you working while you were at uni?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
What did you do?
So my first job at university was at like a property investment firm. And that was like part-time. So I think I was working about 2 or 3 days a week. And that was a lot to fit in with full-time studies and everything else, all the extracurricular stuff I did. But it was great. It was, you know, I was helping out with like the contracts and, you know, like the customers and all that kind of thing. And yeah, it was a great job. I mean, it was colorful. There's a lot of Gold Coast salesmen getting about, but they were really interesting. Some of them like very charismatic, a little strange, but yeah, it was fun.
And what did you learn at that job?
I learned that the power of connecting with people and really like connecting with them on their level. I learned that the more that you can, I don't know, like come closer to someone and get to know them, like the better everything like runs and the more smoothly like the business runs. So I had to learn to adapt. I mean, there was a lot of different characters working in that business and some with like really big personalities too. So again, I was like in a situation where I had to like figure out what was going on and learn to manage the environment and try to connect.
Yeah, cool. All right. And what came after that?
So after that, I started working at the company, the human resource, like I guess personal and professional development company. And there was like one man that was mainly behind that. So it was called Passionate People, and it was incredible. So we ran like national programs like NAB and Lexus and that kind of thing. So it was like, it would be like huge rooms and it'd be like hundreds of people of all the staff. And basically like I learned a lot about human psychology and goal setting and the workplace actually, because I'd basically unpack about people's lives in those sessions about where they're at and where they wanted to go personally and professionally. So I got to observe a lot of unhappy people, I guess,
right.
in the workplace, and go, wow, like workplaces are dry, and like, wow, these people, like, you know, like what is filling them up, you know? So that was quite incredible. Yeah, so that was a great job. And I loved it so much that I just thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing this. It really feels right. Weirdly, then my family were like, why not go practice in a firm? And I didn't even apply. Like, I was so happy in that job, and I was learning so much. I mean, I was learning a lot about entrepreneurship. So we were scaling up, and like we were like putting everything online. So like blogs and like email, email campaigns and that kind of thing. So I was sort of like managing all the business growth. We're setting targets and we're hitting them, and we're building a business. Yeah, and so I got to, like, you know, in that job I got to travel a lot. I went to the US, and I learned, they took me through courses, and I went through like intensive like US sales training and online marketing training and all that kind of thing. So it definitely was super dynamic, and I don't think I could have done what I've done without that role.
Yeah, right. Well, that's pretty foundational then.
Yeah.
And so you talk about being, you know, able to adapt and pretty confident when you were younger. What about getting these jobs? Like, was that something that was pretty simple to you? I mean, like a lot of people at that age, you know, some people feel like they've got nothing to offer, right? When you're, you know, 18 or 19, 20.
Yeah.
Some people probably don't have much to offer, but what was your approach to that?
Well, I mean, I'd been working since I was 13.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like from 13 to 17, I'd had a variety of other jobs. So whether I was working at like cafes, I had a little stint at Domino's Pizza. Like, I mean, I'd worked.
Yeah.
So I guess I had my own like self-confidence in working. And then I'd worked at the property investment firm. So it's like by the time I was working in these jobs, like I sort of I'd worked my way up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So it's no problem for you to come in and say, here's me, here's what I can do for you. Sign me up, pay me.
Not really. I mean, I don't want to sound like egotistical, but I always just like really believed in myself, or like believed in getting the job done. And then believed in like communication and like working with the team and like getting feedback. And a lot of that sort of came naturally to me. I think also just seeing my family run companies, they had to be very people orientated and like work with a lot of people. And I think I just learned that like through communication, you know, a lot can be achieved. And humbling yourself. So
absolutely, I don't think that's egotistical at all. I think it's just I'm not surprised when I ask a question. I was not surprised that you're confident to present yourself and say, look, I can help out here.
Yeah.
So when you are, you know, early on in your career, what things do you think came naturally to you, the skills that you have perhaps now, and maybe some that you look back on and think, I didn't have that skill then, but I have it now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that I still needed, like, by the time I started working like more in the legal field and working in contracts and that, like, I needed a lot of mentorship still to sort of navigate different jobs. So especially when I worked at like the university, I had to deal like with a lot of senior professionals, and you know, I think that my communication skills needed a lot of refinement. I think that I learned even more deeply the benefit of grace and customer service and being like thoughtful and dynamic, and also like humbling yourself and really like seeking like deep feedback, and also like showing an appreciation for feedback. I found that I would always make my bosses feel good about giving me feedback, so I'd always like thank them for their feedback and try really not be defensive, and really like take it on, you know, and not take it personally. And so like I surrounded myself quite young with like quite a lot of mentors, and like some paid, right? So from 19, I invested heavily in different mentors, and I spent like a lot of my spare money on that. So people be like, how are you achieving all these jobs? And it's like, well, I actually like, I have a team of people behind me that a lot of people don't see. And that's still present today. So a lot of what I do, I have a lot of support behind me, and that's not just from my family, but there's other people in the picture that people don't know about. So, you know, I don't think we ever achieve anything on our own, and we don't know everything on our own. So they would really guide me on how to have grace and how to work with people really well.
But that young, you had the perspective to get a mentor or to understand that there's so much more out there to know.
Yeah, I think it was when I was about like 18 or 19, I was like, wow, I feel like I've got a lot to give, but I really need like some kind of teacher. I need someone who can really guide me on this journey. And I really deeply, like, I know it sounds a bit weird, but I really deeply asked the universe for that. I really deeply felt this strong yearning that I needed that. And I dabbled in I had a lot of different teachers. I dabbled a lot. I saw all sorts of people. You can, you name it, like, monks, monks that had become like psychotherapists, just to learn. Not that I was like trying to necessarily like heal anything in particular, but just to learn generally. So, yeah, and so I dabbled a lot, but I actually came back to the most like original teacher that I'd found, and a mentor and guide. So she's still like, I still work with her quite regularly today.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and so yeah, all these years later, she's still there.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well that's fascinating for someone that age, because I'm thinking about it now, and I even think no diss to Australian culture, but probably one of our weaknesses perhaps at times can be that we're quite conservative with our decisions and what we do. So to have someone I don't know 40, 50, 60 year olds who still wouldn't do that now,
I get it, yeah.
And they should sort of, but to go, look, I'm going to explore all these things. Who knows what I'm going to find? A lot of people will say, I find here, they'll, it'll be more, I don't want to try it. More so than I'll try it, I'll see what it's like.
Especially in the Australian culture, like if you're to say that you were to seek help or see a psychologist, I mean, that would just be seen as like something like really weak. And the sort of people I'm talking about are not psychologists, but more mentors, I guess, or like, wise people. I don't know how to put it, but
sure.
Definitely. I think like remaining sovereign is important in terms of really like connecting with yourself, but the right mentor is going to do that. They're going to bring you closer to yourself. So, and I think like, but opening yourself up and learning, I mean, you can always reject the information, right? Or you can always reject the guidance, but like to work with others and to open your mind and your perspective and to have a larger range of people influencing you is really essential. I don't think any of us really get there on our own.
Mm-hmm. And did you, would you reject that guidance and that type of thing? Or was it something that you found that you would pick the right people pretty quickly?
No, I definitely went through like a few. I always have liked working with others or seeking guidance. It's like it's in me to like enjoy that, but then I'm also quite decisive in my own right. But like just to seek to understand different areas, especially, I mean, you got to remember that like I was working in the human development, human behavior space, right? So that was also the culture there influenced that. And so like I definitely experienced a lot of, people being put on pedestals. I met like a lot of like well-known people during that time. So I learned to be very discerning in like who someone really is and who they present themselves to be. And I find that the people that like say less, but like are more just like in their practice and grounded were the better ones, as opposed to people that really sold themselves to you.
I'm into that.
But yeah, that was certainly a learning experience, and I went through like, a lot of different experiences in that process. But I think it ultimately brought me closer to myself and closer to what I felt was right for me.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So after this job at Passionate People, what did you get to next?
So after the job at Passionate People, I worked at, I got a senior role in like the commercial contracts sort of team at Griffith University. So I was attracted to that job because basically it was like it was kind of like a hybrid legal role, but also they wanted someone with like quite a strong business aspect, because my job was to negotiate the contracts.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So I had to review the contracts. We worked as a team. So like I worked with the senior legal team, but then my job was to negotiate the contracts. So I remember being, I think I was like only like 21 and I think, I remember like the first week I was thrown in a room with BHP.
Wow.
And my role was required to negotiate the contracts. Little secret, Griffith did not know how old I was when they took me that job. So there are like 10 levels of employment. I was on level 8. It was quite controversial. I don't think it ever happened before.
Okay.
But I interviewed with a panel of 3 people, right. And it was quite an intense process, but they never asked me my age.
Okay.
And because I graduated and everything, they didn't know.
Right.
And I think they were sort of impressed. They wanted the director was ex-PwC. And he was a lawyer also. And I think they were really, and he'd also listed his own company early on, and he was amazing. And I think they really wanted some fresh blood. They wanted, dynamic people to come in and to be commercial and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I was in the right place at the right time. It was a very senior role. It was very well paid for my age, better than anyone I knew. And I was just like, wow, I cannot believe they've hired me, but okay, let's just give this a go. And I would have to say that even above like the law firms I worked in, like what I learned there, like legally, and my legal skills was tremendous, because everyone there that was a lawyer was like ex-top tier lawyers. They're all ex-top tier lawyers, and they guided me, so, and I had to learn it because I was negotiating the contract.
Yeah,
so I had to really learn the in-depth ins and outs of the contract. So yeah, so it was a great job. Very grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be listening to this and thinking, so you're so young, that's a very, very senior role for someone that age. It was just confidence in the interview, was it?
Yeah, you got to remember I was working in personal development and human behavior. I knew how to be like, I'd also had an in-depth, I shouldn't like probably reveal this, but NLP training. Like I knew how to present. I think that, but I also think that like my CV was still quite solid in terms of like the business analyst and growth experience. And for whatever reason, I mean, I'd have to ask them, I guess, on why they hired me. I have actually heard, because I'm kind of friends with some of the people that like were in that interview, and apparently it was a little controversial, because they were like, we're going to go for this, but then some of them were like, wow, she's, they knew I was young. They didn't know how young, but they're like, wow, like this is not normal of what we hire here,
Yeah.
So I had a lot to overcome. When I first arrived, there were people that had worked at the university for a long time and hadn't, they didn't have the same educational background as me, but I was up against a lot of, resistance.
Sure.
People weren't happy about it.
Right.
So I had to learn to adapt and really like get on people's side and get them to like me. And I liked them too, but they were just really like critical of me in the beginning. So it was quite challenging. That was probably one of my most challenging roles.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I really want to know now, like, did someone ask you like into the role, how old are you?
Actually, my boss, when she was onboarding me, called me and said, can I just get your birthday?
Oh, yeah.
And it was my birthday the day she asked me. Yeah.
Right.
And I gave it to her and she's like, wow. She's like, so you're only, I don't know, I think I was 20 or 21. I can't be sure. But, and she's like, so that's really your age? And I was like, yeah, that's my age. But because I graduated at 20 at Bond, because I'd gone through it so quickly, they just hadn't pieced it together. And she's like, okay. And I was like, but they'd already given me the job. So kind of legally like I was in. And I arrived, and it was a really steep learning curve, that job, because there was no mucking around. I mean, like the university is going to obviously, got to negotiate contracts well, but I mean, it was an amazing team, and they guided me, and they, and they led me in the right direction, and they didn't let me go off on my own until I'd learnt the job. You know what I mean? Like they were really amazing and super detailed. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It's really, really interesting. Okay, cool. So, what happened next, and what was the impetus to move on from there?
So the journey continued, I guess. And I just thought to myself, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I sort of knew that at university. I want to be an entrepreneur. But really, like, I need to learn the system. I need to get super commercial. I need to really understand if I want to master this, and like our world, it runs off a commercial system. I was like, if I want to master this, I really probably need to go and study and work in it properly, Even though Griffith was definitely properly, it was like, let's go and do the actual practice now, and let's do this. So I just applied and thought I'm going to make that move. And I always had the intention of learning it to run my own business. But I was like, I want to master it. I want to really learn, everything I need to know. But I mean, Griffith, like what I learned there was more than I ever almost learned anywhere else, because that was like intense legal work as well. It was very much, I was reviewing huge caseloads of contracts and that kind of thing. So I had the foundation. It was more just like a different way of doing it in a law firm. So the journey begun, and there was like obviously quite a few years of that work. Which was, I mean, all the lawyers at Griffith told me, they're like, it is not a good time. They'd call themselves the refugees. They'd probably hate me for saying this, but some of them are not there or still there. It doesn't matter. But I'm not going to obviously name anyone. But I mean, they just let me know, and it's common knowledge that like those big firms are hard places to work.
Mm-hmm.
And people know that. I mean, it's known. They're long hours. Long hours, and it takes a toll. It takes a toll on your health, your mental health, your physical health, and they warned me about that. But I wanted to try it for myself.
Mm-hmm. And so, what changed from when you talked about at uni that you were like, the thought of working in that type of law firm doesn't appeal to me, or at the time,
yeah.
And then you do decide to go down that path. What was the change?
Well, I guess, when we're 17, 18, we're very idealistic, and we think that like, first I want to be an artist, and then I, want to work for the UN and save the world, and then realize that was not for me either. But yeah, it evolved, and I saw the reality of what that would give me, and what it really meant to be an entrepreneur. And I really felt that if I didn't really learn like the system and go through that perhaps, I wouldn't have like the confidence, and I wouldn't have the full set of skills that I might need to run my own company. So yeah, I really felt it just naturally progressed that way.
Mm-hmm. You got those skills there?
Oh, of course. Yeah,
yep.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. And so talk about, you said it had a bit of an impact on your health. Can you talk to that?
Yeah. So naturally, like when I commit to something, I very much want to go into it and give it my all. So yeah, I worked like 14-hour days, 12 to 14-hour days. Like that was on a regular basis. So by the time I was like 25, 26, I was a wreck, truly. Like I actually showed some friends on the weekend photos of me when I was 25. Like I actually genuinely think I look better now, because I've really made my health a priority. Even though I've done all the businesses, I really have looked after myself a lot more. I would just burn the candle at both ends. I don't know where that came from. I don't know why I did that. It's almost hard to understand why I put myself through that, why I worked so hard. But I just really wanted to do a good job, and I wanted to do my job well. So I just kept working. And I just wouldn't, I don't know, like I just didn't say no enough. And I just didn't have those like boundaries. But it's really hard. Like in those firms, it's hard to have those boundaries. The work needs to get done. Like corporate work, like when there's a deal on or there's something going on, you can't just say like, I'm tired, I'm going home, or like, can we do this tomorrow? Like there's deadlines. So the nature of that work is intense. Right.
And when did you start to feel that you're thinking, this is starting to have an effect on me?
I think like not until the very end. I think I thought that I would be there like, by the time that this all rolled around, I think I was like 6 or 7 years in, and I think I thought I would still do it to like about 30. But the reality was that like by the time I was kind of going out of like the big law, this is the big law space. By the time I was like getting to the end of that, I mean, you're doing all the work anyway. You're doing it, and the partner is literally just sending it off, and they trust you so much they're not even looking at it. So you basically like you've got the skill set to do the work. So it's not like I guess I thought like maybe I'd try and like make partner. I mean, it seems like a crazy idea now. I guess I was like commended on my ability to business development, like my ability to be someone who could develop business, and my social skills. Like I was very much commended on that and recognized for that, especially in the last firm I worked for. They saw that and they recognized it, and they're like, we don't have many female partners, and we want to take you on a female partnership path. They're like, you're really good at the work, and it's quite rare that someone's quite technical but also quite personable. They're like, it's very rare that like you're a rare mix and we really appreciate you. So they're beautiful people. I like loved my last firm that I worked at. They were really amazing. And they wanted to like, you know, nurture me in that, but it was truly just the hours. And it was a day that I woke up and I literally could not get out of bed. I could not actually move. So like your muscles can spasm basically. And then I was locked. So, I was with my partner at the time and I was like, I can't get up. You're going to have to like lift me. But I was just like in so much pain.
Wow.
And it was just out of the blue. I was like trying to exercise. I was trying to do like yoga, but honestly, like by the time you get home at 9:30, 10 at night, and then you got to get to work the next day, and then you want to sometimes get there at 7:30, it's like there's not a lot of time. So I was fitting in like 15-minute runs or like 10-minute walks, but that really wasn't like, you know, great for like the amount that you were sitting. So, I ended up in hospital. I had to get the ambulance and like they took me to hospital and I just like felt exhausted and I just like couldn't move. And I remember the doctor saying to me, he's like, what, like, you know, I had to go see a GP after that because I had to go through recovery and physio. And the doctor said to me, like, what do you do for work? And I was like, you know, I'm a lawyer. And he's like, you know, how many hours do you work? And I told him and he's like, you are not like, you aren't going to go in a good direction health-wise. Like this is not going to work for you. Like your back is like out, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, okay. So I was really like shocked and disappointed. I felt like I'd worked so hard and a part of me felt like I'd failed. And I was like, I was probably like really down for the first time in my life, like truly, I don't want to say like depressed, but maybe I wasn't diagnosed with depression, but I was truly, you know, maybe depressed after this. Cause I basically went to my firm and said like, I'm sorry, but, you know, like unless I can work like less hours, I don't think I can do this. And they were good about it, but they're like the nature of the work is the hours. And I was like, I know that. And I know that like, obviously like my contract and like, what Fair Work would say wouldn't align with that, but that's the truth. And I know that that's the reality of it. So I didn't want to like fight that at all. I just accepted that. I just said, I'm so sorry, but like, you know, my back's out and it's going to take me like weeks to get better. So, you know, being knocked down like that and then having to get better was a real journey for me. It was shortly after that I started the business. Once I recovered, I moved into business.
Right. Wow. And that was what triggered that move, was it? Or were you already thinking that beforehand?
Well, that was already my plan. It just wasn't so immediate.
Yeah, sure.
It was maybe like just a couple of years away. I wanted to progress in the firms more potentially. I thought I did anyway, but I was like, you know, I'm out. And then someone that I went to university with said I'm starting a firm. And so I didn't like go out of firm life completely. It was just that the big law firm life was over for me. And so he was starting a firm and he's like, I really need someone to help out with like the corporate commercial work. And so that's like, I kind of like co-owned the firm. I went on the journey of like co-ownership then with him. And that was in early 2016. So that's when it all started. So it's not like I left law firms then. I then worked with a variety of other law firms as well throughout that period. So I didn't just stop working and start a business. It was like a transition.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to touch on, so you talked about the recovery before. What is that? Just a lot of rest or were you still trying to work during that?
No, the first few weeks I really like couldn't do anything.
Wow.
I had like a stiff back and neck, so I couldn't really work. I couldn't drive.
Wow.
So that was just a lot of physio and I just started going to the gym and doing like light gym and yoga and I just like slowly recovered. Yeah. Okay. So so I took a few weeks off. And then like by the time I was recovered, I was like, I'm ready to go again. You know what I mean? And then I took a contract job to help out a non-for-profit and did a couple of things. And then this is when this popped up. So this opportunity to help my friend like in his firm popped up. And then I sort of like, I sort of became kind of like in charge then of like the commercial team and I really started to learn all the skills about running a business, like truly like, well, I had already learned some of them, but I really truly had to take that on.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And so how long was it between that and then starting, I assume Business Kitz was the first?
Yeah.
First thing that you started. So what was that process like? How long did that take?
It was only it was only like 5 or 6 months. Yeah. I just basically started to see a trend. So running the law firm, I was meeting with small business owners for the first time because in my other jobs, I'd only worked with really listed companies in Griffith. So I was used to super big contracts, super comprehensive systems. And then I started working with small business, and that was quite shocking to me because I was like, wow, these business owners don't have anything that the other companies have. They've got nothing. And every single business was missing the same things. They had no good employment agreements. They had no policies or procedures. They had no good services agreements. Their structure was bad. They had the insurance in the wrong entity. And I was like, whoa. And I was literally repeating myself to every single client. And I just thought, my goodness. I was and then the firm started to do really well. We started to get really popular. People started referring us a lot, and we're doing a good service and high quality work. So it just started happening. And I was like, wow, I'm kind of running out of time. And I was like, how could I, instead of repeating myself, I also really don't like repeating myself. I don't like doing things twice. So I was like, I'm just going to create a document to kind of guide the clients. And I was I really felt for them because I was like, wow, by the time you get everything, it's maybe going to cost 10 to 15 grand to get everything in place. And a lot of them couldn't afford it. And then I was like, there's all these beautiful people with solar companies and yoga studios and hair salons, and they all can't afford it. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is quite, this is a real problem. I'm not talking 1 or 2 people not having everything in place. I'm talking every single company missing something. And I knew what they had to have in place because I'd worked with the bigger companies, right? So I knew what was missing. So, it was I think it was a Friday, and I had just been through it so much. And I just was I'm going to set up a company. And I said to my business partner at the time, I was can I set up this side business? I was I just want to sell some templates, some policies and things, because all these companies don't have it. And I feel bad for them. And, we could sell this because we meet with so many clients a week and they all don't have it. So can I just set this up? And he's yeah, go for it. So then I literally was I didn't hesitate at all. I just, that weekend, I think on the Saturday, my friend was in an account. I was can you set this company up now? And so it was called Stable Consultants at the time. So that's what became Business Kitz. And it really, truly evolved out of a need. I mean, I guess I'm glad that they say the businesses evolve out of that, but it truly was a need. So I started noticing that insurance was out. People didn't have business bank accounts. There was just they weren't bookkeeping right. They there was just so many, they were just fraught with issues. And then I would see them lose their whole businesses because they didn't have the right insurance, and there's all sorts of things going on. And I thought, my goodness, we can't, as lawyers, we can't afford to even go over all this with them. They can't afford it. We can't really afford all the time. So that's when Business Kitz started developing checklists as well, insurance checklists, bookkeeping checklists. Do you have a business bank account? Do you have your insurance? Here's how to check your insurance. Here's how to check all of your IP. We created a 14-page IP checklist. We created all the policies and procedures. And then what was a huge one was HR. So we started developing not only all the policies and procedures, but all the forms. They didn't have the right forms. The new employee forms didn't ask about medical history, and then there'd be a work cover claim. So I just started to piece together all the patterns, and I just noticed where there were gaps. And I literally just Business Kitz was just a process of filling in the gaps. But obviously these resources have been developed over years. And then I started hiring people because I just was there's a business here, and I know that the next business I talk to is going to need actually another 15 things. So, I mean, I'm sure she doesn't mind me saying this, but I actually ended up hiring my, an ex-director of the Griffith University team. She semi-retired, and I hired her.
Cool.
And so she had run a lot of the stuff for large companies in Griffith. And so I was hey, come work for me. I had to twist her arm. It was a lot. She trained me. And then for me to say years later, come work for me, you know what I mean? But she's incredible. I mean, she was so she was just brilliant at what she did. She was just a cornerstone of that whole organization's department. She was amazing. And I mean, I felt so blessed for her to work for me, but I think I'd really worked hard for her. And she was she was hesitant at first. She was wow, this dynamic is I have to think about it. But I was you can work from home. I'll pay you really well. Please work for me. And, she agreed. And so for a year and a bit, she worked for me, and she helped me develop all the resources.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm just really interested in how you got your first client? Like, do you remember your first client that you sold like a template to?
Oh, a template?
Or what was the first thing you sold, should I say?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do actually. They needed, that was a solar business, and they didn't have, a lot of stuff were crashing the cars. So we built we offered them a suite of policies, like a car, like a car policy, you know, and like a motor vehicle policy, and a couple of other things. And then it's pretty easy, like, I don't want to say easy, but like then the next client I think was like a hair salon, and they didn't have everything. So I was like, here's this package. And then it just kept going. Right. Yeah.
And was it like an easy sell at the time because it was just so needed?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. And I didn't sell it like a law firm would have charged you like a lot of money for these documents. Yeah. But we, obviously they're templates, and we disclose all of that. But yeah, I was like, you know, it was more about like getting it out there. Like we still sold it for like a decent price. Like it was still a good price, but it wasn't like a super hard sell because these businesses needed these documents. Yeah. And so they were like happy to purchase these packages.
Right. And if I'm getting this right, the reason this works is because so they don't have to basically pay for the time of the lawyer to come in and do it all for them. So the price is going to be a lot less than the labor of a lawyer. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I also, like, with all like the listed companies I'd worked for, I'd seen a lot of good ways of doing things in terms of templating things, streamlining things. I really pride myself on our like structure and our quality. I deeply analyzed how to pick everything out of a document to make it legally like sound and like to cover as much as it could for the customers and the clients. But it's designed in such a way that they complete the details, but it's super simplistic for them. But it's still going to give them that like foundation that they're likely like they could obviously get them like super customized, but most businesses don't even have like these basic documents. So they're sort of like we spent a long time designing the format.
Sure.
And you know, refining it and making it work because I didn't want to sell something that wasn't going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So what did your growth look like over the first, let's say, few months to a year? Like, was it an organic thing, or were you actively pushing this a lot, or how did you grow this at first?
It was super organic. Yeah. So obviously, like I have business development skills, so I was like focusing on growth and quoting and getting it out there and pushing it a bit, but. Like I've never spent much money on paid advertising. It's like, well, now we are. There have been times where we have, but yeah, what we've done has always like worked really well. So I haven't. Yeah, it was just like it was really super organic. In the meantime, I was still growing the firm, so I still worked like with the firm, and I was growing that as well. So it's like the two just were growing together. Yeah,
sounds easy.
Well,
a lot gone.
It sounds easy, but I think like there are things like being super disciplined, being super like reliable as well. So if you say you're going to get something done, like I would never let anything go. Like I definitely like really honored all of my clients and customers as much as I could.
I was joking when I said sounds easy.
No, I get that. But yeah, I don't want to make it, I also don't want to, I'm conscious of not making it sound like super breezy because it's not. Running your own business is like takes a lot of grit and discipline and late nights, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Early on. So.
And do you remember the first time you thought to yourself, what have I got myself in for?
Yeah. I think when I decided to leave the firm and just focus on Business Kits and get our first like quite large office in Milton. So the next thing I knew it, I started hiring and getting interns and staff, and we had 17 people working for us.
Wow.
And we're building funnels and we're doing the marketing, and then and Lux happened, Lux Whitsundays happened, and then shortly, that was 2017 going to 2018, I thought, oh my goodness, what have I got myself into? Like, this is such a huge undertaking. There is so much responsibility here. yeah, there was a stage amongst all of that, like in years sort of like 2 to 3, where I just thought I am dying. Like this is, I don't know if this is worse or like the law firms is worse. I went through like a super, super hard time with it. Yeah. Like mentally and emotionally, I was like, wow, we need to sell enough. Like I had like an expensive office. We also like had a private office at River City Labs. Like we had an expensive office. I had like employed like on my books like over 10 staff. We were putting these marketing funnels. We were putting subscriptions out. Like it was tough. It was really tough. And I was just like exhausted as well. Like but like it's a different kind of exhaustion than the law firms. Like I was still like looking after my health and like motivated. Like it was exciting because it was thrilling because there was like all this like change and growth. But I certainly did have times where I was really like beside myself and like, wow, like it just felt so full on. And each day was just like a blur and each week was a blur. So yeah, there's definitely been like hard times.
Yeah, sure. And it sounds like you've almost always had a few things on the go. So you're running Business Kits and then you decide to start Lux as well.
Well, I didn't decide to start Lux. I was selling, so my father, like he had a business, like the sailing business. He had one then in the Whitsundays. And like naturally, like being a lawyer, I was doing the sale for him and getting the documents ready and everything. And like throughout that process, the buyers asked me to get involved. And so that's how Lux happened.
Sure.
Yeah, it wasn't like intentional.
Okay. And but how did it kind of morph into you being a director and everything?
Yeah, so the owner of the boat is American, Tom. He's amazing. He's like such an inspiration to me. I'm so blessed to have him in my life. And he's just had some of the most amazing times of his life on this boat, and he wanted to keep it. And he actually said he's got like 18 young people that have businesses under him. So he loves helping young people or people generally have businesses. Like he's a serial entrepreneur. I think he listed one of his first companies super young in the US. So he lives in Arizona. And there was a number of shareholders in the business, and basically, it didn't work out with the others. So like I was just a minor shareholder and just I just thought, well, this is a great learning experience and Tom's amazing and I'll just learn, this will be like something I do on the side. Like we'll just do this little piece of it. But slowly the other shareholders didn't work out. So I ended up, the director and the main controller of the business. And so that's where we're at.
Yeah, right. Okay. And how is that different to the other business you're building? I imagine they're very different businesses to grow or to run.
Definitely. Absolutely. Look, it certainly has had a lot of, it was challenging in a different way. The staff were really different. The hiring process was different. The culture's different. So then I was kind of dealing with like, our HQ and everything, and like the lawyers, like I had like lawyers and everyone working for me in Brisbane, and where it's like very professional and that kind of thing. But then I'm like thrown back into North Queensland. And by the time I'm doing this, I've kind of forgotten, like not forgotten because my family still lived up there, but like forgotten deeply like what the culture's like, like everyone's a mate, and like there's a bit of, truly there's like I love the people out there and I love the place, but there is a little bit of still tall poppy. So now they're seeing me as this like entrepreneur, this lawyer from Brisbane who has this boat. And there was like a whole lot to overcome with all of that as well. So I'm like, I am a local girl who is completely self-made, but like I don't really feel like they could really see me like that. And it was kind of like a shame because I was like, I still have like those same values and stuff like that. And they did see that. Like I got to know myself and it was amazing. But it's very much like, and it's amazing. Like it's a community-based run place, and like all the businesses, like everyone knows everyone, they all like work together and they support each other. So I was like faced with not being there. So throughout that period I thought, to make this work I'm really going to have to relocate for a little while, but I've got these other companies and this is the time where I've got like the 10 staff and like everything's going on. But I said to my team, hey guys, like I'm going to have to go there. Like this is a huge responsibility. This is a multi-million-dollar business. I'm going to have to move up there for a while and run this and train a manager. So I did that. And I found myself then like, like in North Queensland, and that's just like not, not where I would choose to live. Like I love it up there, but I'm quite used to the city and my life's here and my team's here. So we had to like learn to all work remotely and be super adaptable. So I had like a lot of my team here also working on that business. So we were like running all things. So like our phones, and then like before we had like our phone system fully sorted, sometimes like we'd go to lunch and we'd have to take like 3 phones. So we'd have like the law firm, business kits, and like the boat, and we'd just like be sitting there, and it like literally would like, and that would be like, so I think there was a year there where I was working 7 days a week because it was just like one or the other was going.
Wow.
So that was that was intense. And like we are downsizing and merging, and like there's all like change happening now. So I'm like working towards obviously having more of a singular focus, which I believe in. I think you need to be focused in business. So now we've got Alex Maserati is a managing partner of Legal Kitz, and he's running that, and the whole team's migrated with him. So my whole team, so we started Legal Kitz, and then like they've all migrated with Alex now, and he's amazing.
Sure.
He's been a partner of national firms and that kind of thing before, so he's doing a great job. And so we're like slowly like we're shifting everyone's like positions and focus. So like I will, my main focus will be Business Kitz. I'll be the CEO of Business Kitz, and that team's expanding right now. So like that's going to be my focus.
Sure. So you've got Lux, you've got Business Kitz, and then you start Legal Kitz as well. Yeah. So again, I'm just hearing that how hectic it was just before that. What made you decide then you need to start Legal Kitz too?
Well, we always were working with other law firms still. So I was on the lawyer, like I was on the books of other law firms. And so every time like a Business Kitz customer, we want to like, I want to honor the fact that people still need legal services. And I have there's a very strong line. We have a hard line when someone needs advice, and we're not going to give like unsolicited advice through Business Kitz ever. So as soon as someone needs advice, I'd always have to send that to a law firm. So even if they ask me like a legal question, I'm very like disciplined in saying like, of course we will not answer that like through Business Kitz. Like we have consultants that can answer certain questions, but there's certain questions they just are legal questions.
Sure. And even though you're a lawyer, that's not appropriate.
That's absolutely not appropriate because you need to be practicing through a registered law firm.
Sure.
It's very highly regulated, and I very much respect the need for that. Right. So
just goes to show my legal knowledge. That's all.
Yeah. So we can't offer legal advice through Business Kitz at all, So everything has to be super clear for people because they can't, So we always had to work with other law firms, and I was like, this is getting confusing. Like, 1 minute we're like they're working with Business Kitz, and then there's like X firm that they're working with, and it's like it's confusing. We also have a lot of legal work coming in. Like it's huge. I still had like a huge client base, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to find a partner for Legal Kitz, but I'll just set it up now. So that was, it's 2 years ago now. So it was kind of like early, I think it was February 2019 we set that up, and I was like, I'll find a partner. And that process wasn't as easy as I thought it would be in terms of finding the right fit. We found like quite a few people, but it was like we kept on not finding the right fit. Like there had to be someone that really had run a firm before, could manage the clients. Like I ended up holding like senior people's hands, even though like they were like, I don't know, they were like, maybe 15, 20 years out. If they hadn't had their own customers, they didn't have that kind of personality. It was very hard to train them with the time that I had. So then we're like, okay, we need a really established partner, like someone who's already been a partner for years to run this, like someone super senior. And we need to find the right, like the deal and the right, like culture as well. So
it's a huge decision.
Yeah, that wasn't so hard. I guess because we're having traction and we're very much moving into like the online digital space, we were quite sought after. So like as soon as I put it out there, we were like flooded with people trying to like partner with us. Yeah, cool. It was amazing. Yeah. That was also quite overwhelming because like people were super keen because like I think they can see where Business Kitz is going and where like the firm could go, and it's like we're very much in like the modern space, and especially with COVID hitting and everything, like people are like, wow, like we need to change, pivot. So we were like sought after, so we kind of had to be like super in our game because we found ourselves like being like presented with offers, like, and people like ringing us 15 times in a weekend to try to get us to sign, and it was super intense. I was like, wow, I just created this thing and now what's it? It's like, what is going on? So that was intense, but yeah, we found, we went with what we felt was best, and Alex and the broader team are amazing. So we really went with like the skill, like the right skill set, the quality, and the culture was like all together there, and so we made that choice.
Sure.
Earlier this year.
And you say a lot of when you're speaking, you talk in terms of we. Do Do you consult a lot of people with these type of decisions?
Yeah, we have like an advisory board of 6.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we as a team, I mean, we make a lot of joint decisions. A lot of the team are becoming shareholders, so it's kind of like I do see it as our business, and I obviously have my mentors as well, and some of them are going to be shareholders. So it's like it no longer feels like it really feels like my business. It feels like it's our business.
Right.
Yeah.
That's I imagine that takes like a lot of humility to grow that kind of culture. You know, people sometimes they'll start a business for it to be mine, right? You know, but it sounds like you've managed to grow it in a way or build it in a way that everyone feels like they're part of it.
Oh, definitely, Jack. Yeah, I don't really suffer from a me or I syndrome. I'm so excited for everyone to like co-own this business. I love that. I love it that it's like it feels like I'm saying to the team at the moment, because it hasn't all gone through yet. It's all about to go through. So I'm saying to the team, I just can't wait to like, it's our business, you know? And I mean, I've got like some people's like, you know, some of our staff's families wanting to invest and stuff. I'm being very particular in this first round of like who we're letting in, even though there is like about 40 people. But yeah, it's beautiful. Those 40 people are people that have supported me, or I feel very supported by. So those people are some of the best people in my life. I actually haven't allowed anyone else in to that first round, because that's like the foundation of it. So it almost feels like a family. And it feels great. It feels like really supportive, and it's like we're all going on the journey together now, right? Like as the company grows, and if we end up listing in the future and all that kind of thing, like they're all like the original shareholders. And I feel like a great sense of synergy with all those people and their values. And I've been offered a lot of other people to come in, but I just want to allow it because I want this first round to be like super supportive as we like release the software.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, that's really cool. So making that a decision or deciding to live that philosophy where it's, you know, ours, letting a lot of people in, that type of thing. You would have experienced a lot of cultures, right? That's not the first culture you've ever. Well, especially even growing up, you're in a lot of cultures, you're in a lot of work environments, that type of thing. Formulating that decision to decide to do it that way, how much of that was based off what you'd seen, what you'd liked, what you hadn't liked, or was this something that this was just always you?
Yeah, I think I've just. I am like a people person. I like doing things with others. So I think that's just innately who I am. I mean, I also know that it works, right? Like from a business perspective, people are invested. Like everyone's invested. It's energetically, emotionally, you know, it's probably going to be a better outcome. I also learned that quite young when I was at Bond. I started the United Nations Association, like a club there, and I like purposely always knew that, like, you know, when I was approaching my second year and going to my third, I stepped down purposefully to let others own it and take it on. And I think that's just like in my nature to like I'm happy for others to lead. I'm happy for others to you know, even take the reins or take the applause. I'm not really into that. I love like good outcomes, but I love sharing the journey, and yeah, that's really in me. So I absolutely love the fact that we're all going to like co-own it together. And like the staff work so hard. Like when staff work for you, they dedicate such a huge part of their life to you. I feel a huge sense of responsibility in that. And I think it's great that we're all going to be in it together. And yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's really awesome to hear. You don't always hear that perspective a lot, and perhaps it's the people that I've come across in my time. But you know, there is still a lot of ego in business, right? And there's a lot of you know, people who will choose to rule with an iron fist and whatnot. So it's really, really interesting to hear this this other way of doing it. I would want to know, I will wrap up soon, but
sure.
COVID, how did that affect things?
So obviously, like when like COVID was in the media when it first came out and people were quite panicked, we all moved our computers, we all moved home. And Yeah, like we have always been set up with like wanting to be modern and wanting to be flexible. So everything is digital for us. Everything's online. So it was super easy to just like move home. And then like with it, I think people are like tidying up their legals and stuff and business stuff. So like it hasn't like affected us in a negative way. It kind of sucked like working from home. Our team, I think everyone on our team is like that. We love coming to work. We're quite social. I think we're like a very supportive environment. So I think like people actually like, I was actually saying to the team, like you can keep working from home, and everyone wanted to come to work. So I was like, okay, great. Like that made me feel really good because I was like, maybe I'm doing something right if we all want to be at work. So yeah. So, COVID, I mean, like we're so blessed. I think I just feel so lucky to be in Australia right now. I have family and friends overseas and it's just like such a hard time. I don't like the isolation either. Like I want to be in the office. I want to be with my team.
Sure.
I don't want to be at home, you know? I think it taught our team that we may not want to, like while we might have flexible working arrangements, we don't want to all work from home, you know? Like we thought we were going to make that a bit more of a policy, but you know, I think, I mean, not a lot of our team in fairness have children. They're either like, you know, pre-children age sort of, you know, or they've had their children and they're sort of a bit older. So we're not really faced with that. So maybe that'll change for some staff, but, we all like, you know, going to work. So happy that we can come back into the office at the moment.
Sure. You didn't like working from home yourself?
Not really, no.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. All right. So, now it brings us to when we're doing this interview towards the end of 2020 with business kits, with legal kits. Where's it going? Well, let's talk about business kits because that's going to be the big thing, right? What's the vision for that now?
So basically, everything that we sell, we have like 400 plus products and like documents and checklists and forms and that kind of thing. It's all going to be integrated into a software. So the software is going to consist of like two aspects to it. So there's like the business aspect and the HR aspect. So what we're moving towards is that every single document for a business should be like in that portal. So whether or not they like get it from Legal Kits or they get one of our templates, everything should be uploaded to the portal. So for example, like if you're taking on an employee, so say it's like his name's Tom Smith, you will like onboard him and everything will be electronic as well. So all the onboarding documents will be sent to his email address. He'll electronically sign them and they'll all be stored under his profile. So it's moving away from like, it's like completely paperless. So it's moving away as much as possible anyway. So everything should be like stored on the profile, even your company setup and everything, your banking, your insurance, like everything should be like on this portal. So there's like the business and like the HR aspect, I guess. And so like, it's kind of, our goal is to kind of be like, I guess like the legal business system, like Xero is for like accounting. So it's like, it's very much like everything's there. And then if you need legal assistance, like in the portal, will say if you need like this document looked at or anything, like you can process that through Legal Kits. Yeah,
right. Very interesting. I know, I mean, I am promised I'm going to let you go soon, but now I want to know how you made the choice to move that way with it. We're going online. Like what made you make that decision to put it all in this software?
Yeah, good question. So when we started our like heavily online marketing in 2018, there was one point, well, it was online and offline marketing to be fair. We built funnels and we did a whole bunch of stuff. We did business expos and stuff, and we hit a few points where we had a few scaling pains and we had far too many inquiries actually. So we got like completely bombarded, and I just thought, every single inquiry like required, like I tried to train the staff and we had scripts, but they really couldn't like cater to it. So like it required so much of my time. So there were times where it was like 2 or 3 weeks where we weren't getting back to new inquiries. I was like, hey, this isn't going to work. I was like, we really need like a singular, like, because each customer would need to have a discussion about all the things they may need, may not need. Do you know what I mean? So why would streamlined it? It's kind of still not streamlined. So we're like, we need a single product. We need a single system. It's much more simple for like the customer and us to market and to sell and to scale. And we're like, we can't scale it like this. So it just like slowly evolved into like the fact that this would work best in a software.
Yeah, makes total sense. All right, and who needs you? Like how would a business know that they need business kits? Need your help?
Yeah, well, it's going to be it's targeted at all Australian businesses. So basically, anything from like a small to medium business to like a listed company could use the software. Basically, it's also just like an online portal, right? So everything it will be stored and secure, and then accessible. So like a lot of the times companies have documents everywhere, and it's not in one place, especially their key documents and their employee records and that kind of thing. So if they've got employees or they've got business documents that they want to store somewhere and they want to make sure it's safe and secure, Business Kits will be useful. We're also going to have like date stamp technology on all like employees and all like people say all their customer contracts and suppliers, they'll have date stamp technology. So should they should take notes on everything that goes on, and then should they be in a legal case, we'll have like all the evidence stored in the portal.
Cool. No, that's really awesome. So any parting advice you'd give to sort of up and coming entrepreneurs? There's a lot of opportunity still. Believe in yourself. There's heaps of opportunities. I have a lot of other ideas. I'm not gonna act on any of them, but I think if you live in Australia, we live in a great country. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of opportunity in the tech space. I think where we're moving is like a very much a digital age. Like we already are in that, but and some people like to call it the Aquarian age, right? Where we merge with tech. I think the future's tech. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of products missing still that I see. Like there's gaps. So like really, if you want to go on the journey, you've just got to have so much belief and really back yourself, but also, be intuitive, be smart. Don't assume what people need. Like really find out, like build slowly, like keep on, like step by step, go on what people need. Don't be in your ego and make assumptions about things. Like keep progressing off need. Yeah, right. That's really good. That's really awesome advice. So if anyone wanted to find you personally, to maybe shoot you a line, send you an email, or they wanted to get in touch with Business Kits, where should they go?
Yeah, well, I guess they can go to, www.businesskitz.com.au. If they want to connect with me, look, it's not like I'm, not that everyone knows me, but I do get a lot of messages. So I may not get back to you, but I mean, you can add me on LinkedIn. Or if you want to like apply for a job, you can go on our websites. So I'm not overly contactable. I just can't be. But every now and then I do look through my LinkedIn. So like if people send me messages, I do actually go through the messages. I don't reply to them all, but I do go on there and have a look. So probably like add me on LinkedIn, or you can follow me on Twitter or my social media and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. Well, Sarina, it's been an absolute pleasure. This has been very, very enlightening conversation. I'm really just sort of so impressed with your story and with the humility that you've done everything with and achieved a lot, a lot. You've certainly crammed a lot in what seems, So congratulations on all your success. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here today to tell your story.
Thank you so much, Jack. And I just want to say that I absolutely love this podcast. It was the best brief I've ever received because you really dive deep, and it's not just like a shallow business chat. So I'm super honored to be here, and I love it. And I really hope that the push, goes further, because this is a great product for people.
Awesome. I really appreciate it, Sarina. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Push Podcast. Show notes can be found at bethepush.com/podcast and clicking on the relevant episode link. Remember to subscribe, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.